Block Gemara. It's Mitzvah Shabbos. My they say, we just finished learning about Lashon Hara, and something that always bothered me. The Chofetz Chaim wrote a whole Sefer Shmiras HaLashon, it's a big thing, Lashon Hara. So why is it that in the entire Shulchan Aruch there's no chapter that's called Hilchos Lashon Hara? In the Shulchan Aruch, we only have it in the Magen Avram, which is only a commentary on Shulchan Aruch, in chapter Kuf Nun Vav, which are the laws of Masa Matan, the ways of dealing with other people. And there's the longest Magen Avraham in Shulchan Aruch, and he collects a whole bunch of laws. And in there's about 2 lines, and that sums up the entire laws of Lashon Hara. Don't know. No answer for that.
So, if we have to pinpoint it, where do we pinpoint the makor for it?
It's a Gemara in Erechim. I mean, we learned now yesterday some about Lashon Hara, but it's a Gemara in Erechim. That says Zion. We'll see there. The Gemara spells out all and even the Gemara there is not much. So it's gleaned from different Gemaras, Rishonim. But what we had yesterday was quite, detailed in the law of Lashon Hara.
Okay.
It's very little. It's very, very little. It's just amazing. Okay, up to 2 dots. So we're talking about there's a document called a get pashut, and there's a document called a get mekusher. Get pashut is an ordinary document, and the Adam sign on the bottom, and the get mekusher is where because of those kohanim who had a terrible temper and at a whim, they would divorce their wives, and once you do that, you can't take it back. So they made this long process that by the time they're ready to use that get, they're gonna sort of calm down. That's called a get mekusher, which is tied up, the witness sign on the back. And then the Mishnah said that Shimon Gamliel says, and this doesn't only apply to get, once you put it into place, it applies to all shtaros, that every place has their customs. So it seems that the Shimon Gamliel argues with the Tanna Kama. What the Tanna Kama holds, you don't follow the local custom if you use an unfurled document or you use a rolled up document that's sewn together. What does it mean? The Tanna Kama, let's lay 5 lines from the top of the page of Kuf Samach Hey Amar Aleph. But Shimon Gamliel, you follow the ways of the land. The Tanna Kama, let's lay minig Medina. Tanna Kama doesn't follow the minig Medina. Amar Rabashi said, but Asra the Nihig. So that's this. Let me explain to you. But Asra in a region, the Nihigi Pasha that everybody uses just the ordinary document. The Amalei Pasha, then the guy told the Sefer, I want you to go ahead and make me an ordinary document. But Azal Avalei Mekusha, he didn't listen, he didn't obey, and he went and made a document that's Mekusha, that's tied up. Then Kipeda, there's no question that when I told you to make a document that's unfurled and you went ahead and you made a rolled document that's tied, you're not working for me. And therefore, if it's a get of a woman, it's not a valid get. Or, for example, so there's no argument there. Or Nihigi Mekusha, let's say the custom is to make it tied, but he told the guy, I want you to go ahead and make me an Avad Mekusha, that kind of a star document. But instead, he went and made an ordinary document. Again, Kepeda, I told you, follow the minimum Medina, you didn't. So if it's a get, it's not valid. Which sounds from here, says some Rishonim, what happens the minimum makom is to make, let's say, an ordinary document, and I said nothing, and you made a get mekusher, it would be all right. Because even though the minig is this way, since technically they're both all right, and I didn't say anything, but the evidence all right. So what's the argument? Keep when they're arguing, but Asra the Nihigi be Pasha Mekusher. In this particular area, some people do it one way, some people do another way. But he told him, go ahead and make me a document that is, the ordinary standard document. But you went ahead, you didn't listen to me, you made mekusha. But the thing is, in this area, some people do. What happens then? When I told you to make it pasha, was I strictly telling you to make it pasha, or I was just suggesting it to make it easy for you? If it's too difficult to tie it up, don't worry about it, make it pasha. Marsov, one opinion, the Tanna Kama says, if I told you, I gave you directions to go ahead and make an ordinary document, that's the only document that I'm accepting. And otherwise, it's not a valid divorce. And if Shimon Gamliel holds, we're just making a suggestion. I want to try to make it easy for you. There's an argument if it'll be the other way around. If the minig is to do both, but I said make it mekusha, which is the harder one. How do we read into that? Do we say, I'm just making a suggestion? Or is he saying, I don't care. I want the makusha get. And otherwise, it's not a valid get. It's not so clear. This particular argument, if I make a suggestion, am I being particular or am I just making a suggestion, is in fact a shita of a number tanoim. And the halacha is never like a shita. Rab Shimon Gamliel, Rab Shimon, Rab Elazar, Kulus, they all believe Mara Mokum. If I make a suggestion, I'm just making a suggestion. I'm not limiting it to that. What are we talking about? Of Shimon ben Gamliel Hada Amram. We just learned it. When I said to you, go ahead and make this document like an ordinary document, I was just making a suggestion, make it easier. That's all. But if you made it the other way, it's still good. Rab Shimon, what's the Rab Shimon? The story of Rab Shimon is that if a person says he goes to a woman and says, here's a silver coin, and you're Mekudesh with that. Turns out to be it was a golden coin. Then obviously so there's an argument whether she is did I deceive her, or since it turned out to her benefit, she doesn't mind at all. So Shimon ben Gamliel says that if he says that if it benefits her, she doesn't mind. So Dalakama says she's not engaged, she's not married because you said silver, it's not silver. But if Shimon ben Gamliel says if it's the benefit, it does help. Interesting here that Rashbam learns if he said to her, I'm a Yisrael or I'm a Levi, turned out to be as a Kohen, then even Rab Shimon ben Gamliel would say, even though a Kohen is better than, superior to a Levi or to Yisrael, maybe she's not interested in a Kohen. It brings in challenges and she's not interested in a life that the husband is a Kohen. So even Rab Shimon would admit that it's not valid. We're talking about where it's money and it's better than I told you. Says the Gemara, Shimon, not Shimon. He told the shliach, through a shliach agent. He told the agent, go ahead and tell her that silver turned out to be his gold. All I'm doing is making an indication. I'm not making it conditional that it's silver. Rabbi Loza, what's the story? Rabbi Loza, now we learned if a woman asks a shliach, do me a favor, go to that town and obtain a get from my husband on my behalf. Be my shliach Kabbalah. The guy went to another town and he found the husband there and received the get. Was she being particular? I only want you in this area to go get to receive the get from my husband, nowhere else. And why would that be? Because maybe nobody knows me. So I don't care if there's a get, who cares? They know my name, nobody knows who I am. But in the other town, my family lives there, my friends live there. I don't want them to know. It's humiliating that I'm being divorced. So am I being particular, or no, I'm just suggesting that my husband's probably in that town, go there. But if he turns out to be somewhere else, fair enough. So again, it's not Haisha Shamis Gavla Gita Makbani. Go to that place to keep Makmacher, he received somewhere else. Possible. But Abelaz and Machshev, because I was just making a suggestion. Mar Sobak Peda. So the Tanakama says that he meant, I want you Dafka to go to that town. Or Mar Sobar Mara Mokumulay, just helping him out. There, that's where my husband, I believe, is. Then the Mishnah says, if you take an ordinary document and you only have one aide, one witness signing there, it's not valid. And if you have a document on Makusha, which we learned in our Mishnah, one of the distinctions, the differences are that requires 3 witnesses. If you only have 2 witnesses, it's not valid. Now that's a big chiddush, because generally we say, 2 witnesses are sufficient. But by Makusha, we said you need 3, and anything less is no good. That's a chiddush. But to tell me that a document that only has one aide is not valid, we know that. What's the Mishnah coming to teach you? And that's the Gemara's question. Says the Gemara Pasha Shekos It says the Mishnah that if you had an ordinary document, one witness signed, I know the Mishnah needs to tell us that what if you have a makusha and that 2 witnesses signed on it, it's possible. We need it because I would have thought generally speaking, 2 witnesses are kosher. Why shouldn't it be kosher b'di'evet here as well? Kamash the apostle. That if you made a get like that with 2 witnesses signed in the back, it's not a valid get. She's not allowed to get remarried. She has to go receive another divorce. You tell me that a pashut, and you only have 1 witness signing that it's possible. Pshita, don't we know that? So Gemara says you're right. Omar Abai says the Mishnah is not talking about a single witness. The Mishnah is talking about a case where you have a single witness signed on a document, but you have another witness who saw the loan, and therefore. And the Chiddush and the Mishnah is telling you, so you would think that you can combine the 2, because at the end of the day, you have 2 witnesses. comes to tell you that no, you do not have two witnesses on the document. The document is only a lone witness, which means the document itself is disqualified. The person owes you the money, but not because of the document. And what's the difference? The document entitles you to go to any purchasers after that date and collect the property from them if the borrower doesn't have sufficient funds. But if there's no document, you cannot go to any of the buyers because we're protecting the buyers, as we'll see in a week's time. So that's one difference. Another difference is if the borrower says, I paid you back. If I have a document, I'll tell you, what do you pay me back? So why the document still in my possession? But if I don't have a document, and I even have witnesses, I lent you money, but you always have the right to say you paid me back. Hamal be'edim, if you lend money with witnesses, ain't tzarich lepoyre be'edim. You don't have to repay with witnesses. And even though the guy says, look, but I still have a document in my hand. A document with one aid on it is not considered a document. That's what the chiddush of our Mishnah is. So you have two witnesses, but only one signed on the document, and that's why it's disqualified. Says Amar Bible. I feel it. Rabbi said the chiddush Mishnah is nitzchad. Nitzchad. We're talking about feel eid echad b'ksav, the eid echad b'peh. One witness on the document and one witness oral. They don't combine. Says the Gemara, but I want you to know that Meimar disagrees. Meimar ho, Meimar achsher be'eid echad b'ksav, be'eid echad al peh. Meimar says if you have one witness that is on the document and one witness is oral, they do combine together. To what degree? That is considered a full-fledged document. The guy cannot say I paid you back. Why is the document still in the lender's hand? And the lender has every right to go to different purchasers and take it back to them. The document only has one aid. A document makes a lot of noise. It's registered. People can find out. So even though there's only one aid there, the document itself is still there. The reason why we need a second aid is to prove the veracity of the shtar. But if we have the document there, we have a second aid verbally who says everything is all right, then the document itself is what makes all the noise, and the buyer should have been aware and should have looked around to see whether there were any outstanding debts. There is a famous question that Rishonim asked. If you only have a single witness on the document, doesn't that fall under the prohibition where the Torah says al pi shnayim edim based on the words of two witnesses, and the Gemara learns out we have mi pi hem v'lei mi pi ksavam, from their mouths but not from their writings. If you have a document with two witnesses, it's a document. But if you only have one witness there, then it's basically a witness who put something in writing. How can it be acceptable? Generally speaking, there's an argument between the Rambam and the Ramban about all documents. The Rambam holds that all documents are only midrabanan, because Mahatayra is not recognized as a valid paper, because the Torah says, I want the witnesses to verbalize what they have to say, not to put it in writing. But pihem, from their mouths, or lame piksav, not in writing. So all documents are midrabanan. The Ramban goes out on the attack, and the Ramban says, if so, then how does a divorce work? How does a contract to get married work? Because a divorce is on a document. And you tell me it's only midrabanan. That means my Torah, there's no such thing as divorce. What are you talking about? The Torah says the cost of the sefer krisis, right? A divorce. So therefore, the Ramban says that a document is 100% all right. That's not what the Torah means with pi and piksava. What it means is that a witness should not write down, his testimony, and whenever he has to go to court, he probably will, if he forgets and he looks at the paper and he repeats what it says in the paper, that's called pi hem piksava. If the paper reminds him what happened, it depends how much he has to read it before he reminds himself, that's considered valid. However, there's a big argument to Rabbeinu Tam and Rashi. Rabbeinu Tam holds sorry, we'll get to that. So to answer the Rambam, the Rabbeinu Chaim Brisker wants to say, there's two kinds of documents. There's a document which is like testimony, which is any document, a loan. What's a loan contract? A loan contract is basically telling you that Reuben lent money to Shimon. So what's the act? The act was that Reuben lent money to Shimon, and the document is there to support it. So then it's like testimony. So the Rambam says that's only midrabanan if you write it down on a document, because the Torah says PM It's called a star raya. It's there to support what happened. But a get is totally different. The document of a get or the document of engagement is not to tell us what happened. This is the document that makes it happen. It's called a star keel. That has nothing to do with Adis, where the Adis are coming to give us testimony. This Adis is what makes it happen. And that's totally different. And that's why it's Mehatayra, it's valid. Rabbeinu Tam says when it says it means that the witness has to be able to speak. If the witness is able to verbalize, even if he doesn't, he writes it down, it's good enough. A star is good enough. But if he's not able to speak, then he cannot write it down either, which means a witness who's mute cannot sign on a document. And Rashi disagrees. Rashi holds that no, that even if he's able to speak, it has to be spoken and not documented matter. Okay, so Ameimer holds one witness on the document is good enough as long as there's another witness who witnesses. It says the Gemara, what about Abaye? He argues, what do you say about that? I didn't hear it. I don't care what Abaye says. I don't agree with it. Elakasha must listen. So according to you, Ameimer got a problem. According to you, Ameimer, if it was a witness on the writing and a witness verbally, it's valid. So when our Mishnah says that a shtar with one witness is not valid, is invalid, is talking about only a witness signing it. What's the chiddush of the Mishnah? Gemara said, you're right, there is no chiddush. The purpose of the Mishnah is to describe the psul of a get mekusher. By a get mekusher, we need 3 witnesses, but if 2 witnesses sign, it's not good. Just like if 1 witness signed by a shtar pashat. So the Mishnah is not out to teach you the din that a single witness is no good. We know that. It's out to teach you the chiddush, get mekusher, 2 witnesses are insufficient. Maslisin Hakamash, when Mishnah come and teach you the Shnayim and Mekusher, that 2 people who sign the get Mekusher is no different than Eid Echad B'Pasha. Ma Hasan, just like over there, Psul Daraisa, just like over there, it's Pasul Mahatorah by a single witness on a document. Af Hochanami Psul Daraisa. So too, when it comes to a get Mekusher, 2 witnesses are Pasul Daraisa. Now, what do you mean Pasul Matorah? Matorah, 2 witnesses are always good. So Rashbam and Taisis and some other Shayim say that the Rabbanan decided to treat this document as if it's Pasul Mahatorah. So if it was a divorce and she gets remarried based on this document, only 2 witnesses signed in the back, the children will be mamzerin. If it's a loan contract, you cannot collect from lekuchas, from purchases. However, one of the Rishonim says a beautiful thing. He said, that means, according to the Rashbam and Taisis, the get mekusha mahatorah is valid with 2 witnesses signing. However, the Ritva and Ramban and others say no. I think Ramban. They say no. They say a get mekusher mahatorah is possible, even if you have 3 witnesses signed. You know why? Because they're all signed on the back. Mahatorah, the witnesses have to be signed right next to the words, the content. Here they're signed on the back. So every get mekusher mahatorah is possible. The rabbis came along and made a special takana and said we decided to make it kosher on account of those kohanim. But if you only did 2 witnesses on the back, then the Rabbanan say we remove our takana because you didn't abide by our rules, and therefore it goes back to what the Torah says, and the Torah says that such a get is not valid because you signed on the back of the document. Now comes when the Maimer says, I will prove to you that a single witness on the document, single witness saw, is good enough. Now, there's the Gemara in Sanhedrin, learned that the Gemara has 2 arguments between Rabbi Yeshua and Korcha and Tanakama, and the Tanakama Rav Nosson. Tanakama said that in order for witnesses to be considered one group of 2 witnesses, they have to see exactly the same event. According to Shmuel and Korcha, even if we did not see the same event, for example, Reuven, one witness saw Reuven lend money to Shimon, $100 to Shimon on Sunday. The other witness saw Reuven lend $100 to Shimon on Monday. 2 different loans, but we both saw the exact same amount. So we can join forces and go to a bezin and say that Shimon owes Reuven, at least we know $100. Between the 2 of us, he definitely owes $100. So the Tanakama says that's no good, and Rabbi Yeshua says that is good. Okay, have that in mind. So now the Gemara says, Teda, and maybe I'll prove to you that the 2 different witnesses can work together. The Shulchan B'Tam says from Israel, Chavraya, Rabbi Yirmiyah himself lived in Israel. Here it said they sent from Israel, but it sounds like in Dav Chav Beis they banished Rabbi Yirmiyah from yeshiva because he was, I guess, he was asking them annoying questions. You know, what happens if one leg is within 50 amas, one leg is outside of 50 amas by a chicken, by a dovecot. You know, when we know where the chicken came from, if it's roiv and karev, most chickens are in that place over there, but you found the chicken closer to another dovecot, which is smaller. So, and anyway, so we said there's a certain distance, 50 amos. So you said, but what happens if one leg was within 50 and one leg was out? They couldn't take it, they banished from yeshiva. So now in the same Masechta, they're going to send him a letter to Rabbi Yirmiyah. So he must have gone to Babel then, because he was banished. They sent him a letter and asked him a question as follows. What do you say in this case? Do you combine or not? So he says, Eliba, and they said to him, Eliba, the Tanakama, according to Tanakama, who says that even then they saw the same amount, and each one saw the same amount, and they come to court. And Tanakama says they don't combine them. Then like Bailach, surely you cannot combine one guy on the document and one guy who just saw it. He said even they both signed the same document, but one was talking about $100 and one was talking about another $100. Or they're verbal. They don't combine. So here, one on the document, one down. Surely they don't combine. And as places, the long places in Omer Aleph explains, because they're not saying the comparison of what we're talking about now to there is because the guy, the aide who signed the document is not saying the same thing as the aide who saw the event. The aide who saw the event, what did he see? He saw the document being transferred from the borrower to the lender. The guy who signed the document is saying a loan took place, because who asked the guy to sign the borrower? And even though he didn't necessarily see the loan, the fact that the borrower said to him, sign this document that I owe Ruben $100 because he lent me the money, is tantamount to seeing the loan. So they're not really seeing the same thing. One guy saw the loan, one guy saw the transfer of the document. And therefore, according to Tanakama, definitely they cannot combine. The question is, we're asking you a liber Rabbi Shimon Karcha. According to Rabbi Shimon Karcha, that says that you do combine the two witnesses. Maybe Shnayim Biksav or Shnayim, at least they both saw something very similar. Both of them signed a document, or both of them saw a verbal. One guy saw the loan on Sunday, one on Monday. Who did mistafer? They combined. Maybe they mistafer. And here they're so distant from each other. One guy's on a document, one guy's verbal. Maybe they don't combine. That was the question. This very question, the argument, the Abaye and Ameimar was asked by Rabbi Yirmiyah to Rabbi Yirmiyah. Shalach, he wrote back to them. I'm not worthy that you wrote to me. Suddenly he became very humble. I'm not worthy that you write to me. But your student is of the opinion she's darful. Now, could be he's referring to himself in third person and calling himself a student, that your student holds inclined that they should combine. So the Meimah, he's using that as a proof. You see that they agree with me that they combine, not like Abaye. That's your version of the story. We have a different version altogether. And according to our version, it's totally unrelated to the argument between you and Abaye. This is how we learned it. In that Gemara there in Sanhedrin, there's another argument. What happens if the two witnesses saw the same event? Do they have to front up in front of the court at the same time? The Tanakama says they have to come to Bedin together, because that's when they become Aedis. Rabbi Shimon Karcha says, no, when you become witness? When you saw the event and they saw it together. So it doesn't matter, you come in on Sunday, the other guy comes on Monday and testify, it makes no difference. Because they saw it together, they're a group of 80. So remember that machlekes. So now the question is as follows. They asked Rabbi Yirmiyah, what happened? The two witnesses saw the same event, but they didn't go to Bezin. Not only 2 different days, they went to 2 different Batei Dinim. Ma'u sheyevayu Bezin eitzel Bezin v'yitztarfu. Can the Bezin who heard one witness join the Bezin who heard the other witness and combine together and make a ruling? Because they both heard the entire story, but each one only heard from one witness. Is Eliba the Tanakama the Rab Nosson, who said that even the witnesses have to come together to one court and later Boilach. That not only come to the same court, but in the same day, the same time. Then there's nothing to talk about. Is Afilu Bechad Bezdin and Abler Tav, even in one court they don't combine. El Kita Boilach, our question is according to Rab Nosson. He says if they come to the days, all right. Bechad Beidin the Mistarfa, one bezin they combine. Abel Betrei they don't combine 2 Batidin. It makes no difference, even 2 different bezins, since the witness can come in on Sunday and the other was on Monday. So the same thing here. Even though they both went to 2 different bezins, the bezins can combine and we have testimony. Nothing to do with your question about one guy signing a document and one guy, being verbal. I'm not worthy. Your student believes she is tarful, you should combine. Mar Barachi says, both of you got the story wrong. I'll tell you what the question was. Amar Hachi Shochel, this is what asked. Shnayim Sheheidu Bebezin Zeh. What happened was 2 people testified in front of 2 was that came together, testified of Bezin, but then what happened was that the 2 out of the 3 members of the Bezin had to leave. They left. The Chazur Bezin, so they went now to another Bezin and they testified again exactly the same thing. And what happened was again, one or two that the Yonim had to leave. So the question is, can this Bezin here, who heard the two Adim, and the one or two members of this Bezin here combine together and say, well, but even though they didn't hear them all together at the same time, we heard them two different times. So we're not talking about the Adim two different times. It was the Bezin two different times. It's good enough. And they can combine. Can one member of each bezin come together and join and combine? No question. If witnesses can combine, the yonim you have to tell me. If Madach, one witness is on a Sunday, one on a Monday can combine. So surely, the one guy comes to Bezin one day, on Bezin another day they combine. Surely that if they came together to Bezin, then the yonim can combine. The liber, my question is, a liber the Tanakama. Tanakama says that the witnesses split up, it's no good. What about the Dayanim? The witnesses came together, but they came to one bezin, then they went to the other bezin, to the Dayan here, and Dayan here joined. Maybe perhaps witnesses cannot combine. But the Yanim is tafim, but judges could. So Louis said back to them, I'm not worthy of it. Your student believes she is taught for they combine. Ravina has a fourth version. This is the question that they ask. 3 people sat down to certify a shtar. The Mace and one of the judges died before they actually handed down the verdict. So the question is, when they start writing the document, they say, in front of 3 people, we heard this and this. With 3 people, do they have to add, and one of us didn't make it, passed away? Or don't have to add that in. So the Chulu, he said, you have to write in front of 3. We started with Chadlesil. And the reason for that is, otherwise it looks like the document looks fraudulent. You start off in front of 3 people. This is, we heard this case. Then only 2 signatures on the bottom. So therefore, it's preferred that we start out with 3, but we ended with 2. And because of this humility that Rabbi Yimi exhibited this time, he didn't even want to give an answer, and he spoke about himself in third person, that I'm a Talmud, and I'm implying, without even paskening, is Ailul Rabbi Yimi ben Rosh. They brought him back into the Beis HaMedrash. So for 143 pages, he was out of yeshiva, but then they brought him back. Now, we're talking about the laws of documents, and I told you the Rishonim have a hard time understanding how this entire Perik fits into Bava Basra, other than the fact that we spoke about a document from a Shchivmara who's dying, so we just continue in the laws of documents. Here we're talking about a document that's a bit vague. Kosoboy, you wrote in the document, sometimes we call it zuz, and sometimes we call it a dinner. There are 4 dinarim to a seller. So 100 dinarim equals 25 shloim. So what happens like as follows. Kosoboy was written in the document, zuzin mei, 100 zuzin, the inun shloim esin, which really is 25 shloim, but he wrote, which makes up 20 shloim. Now it could be, he only gets 20 shloim, even though normally it's 25, but it could be that he's explaining that the shloim, the zuzah they used was, remember those days, money wasn't just symbolic, money had intrinsic weight. And over time it faded, it corroded, and therefore was worth less money. So it seemed to be saying that he's explaining something. I used 100 dinarim, but wasn't worth much. It's only worth 20 shloim. Or next part, he said there, zuzin meya, 100 dinarim, Obadin Tlasla, which equals 30 slime, which is not true either, it's 25, which means that the slayin is using a very poor quality. So you need 30 of them to make up 100 dinarim. Ain't lelamana. Again, he only gets 100 dinarim worth. You don't say, 30 slayin means 120. It doesn't work that way. What about, he says, Kesev Zuzin Di'inun, I lent him money, silver dinarim, the inun which make up, and the menimchak. The next word was erased. We don't have the number. And obviously they're disputing it. One person says as little as possible, the other one increases as much as possible. Since we don't know, Yad Bal Hashtal Zaktaina, the guy who has the shtar, he's trying to take money out. He has to prove, the owners approves on him. A Pachas Mishtayim, and then we say that, he said plural, Zuzin, the minimum plural is 2, so that's what you get. 2 Zuzin, 2 dinar. What happens as Kesef Sloin, the silver sloin, the Inu which make up, v'nimchak, and it's erased. Same problem. Ein pach mishtayim, then you give him 2 slime. What about dark kindness? Each dark is worth 2 slime. The inu which make up, this is how many I lent him, but v'nimchak, the number was erased. Ein pach mishtayim, again, minimum is 2. We also learned before that the last line of a document is we don't believe it, and generally the last line we recap whatever is the content, that we don't learn anything new. The penultimate line you do learn new things from, and according to some, even if there's no line after that, if it's 2 lines above, we will learn some. So what happens if there's a contradiction between the recap, the summary, and your initial lines there? For example, how much money was, or the name of the person. So Kosbala Mailamana, let's say on top of when you open up the document, it says $100 was loaned, 100 dinar. But Lamatam Masayim, in the summary, it says 200. Or Mailam Masayim, Lamatam, all the way around. The top says 200, the bottom says 100. You always go after whatever it says on the bottom. So why bother writing at all the amount on top when you only look at the bottom? So the answer, only 1 letter was erased from the summary, so you can't really make out what it is. Then, for 1 letter, we will trust and go back to the opening, which the Gemara will discuss in a minute. Yilma ben El, you learn from the top. Says the Gemara, Omar Kesef, if he says silver, ain't pachas, he lent me silver without an amount, ain't pachas mediner Kesef. Then the minimum you have to pay back is 1 silver dinar. What about Kesef dinarin? You lent him silver dinarin, but didn't say how many. Then v'dinarin Kesef, or dinarin made out of silver, ain't pachas mishnei dinar, you got to give 2 dinar. What about Kesef bedinarin? He says Kesef, silver, bedinarin in gold, ain't pachas mishnei dinarin dove. Then you give silver the value of 2 dinarin of gold. How much silver do you give? Bedinarin. Bedinarin, we're going to translate is the value of gold. The kesef, I'm going to give you silver coins, but to what value? The value of a minimum of 2 dinarin of gold. Kesef, dinar dove kesef. And then you give him what? Gold. You give him silver of the value of 2 dinar of gold. Let's understand. It says kesef. Kesef means a minimum of a dinar. How do you know it's a coin? Maybe it's a piece of silver which is worth less. It's not carved out. No work was put into it. It's written there, coin. So obviously, it's not a piece of silver, not a nugget. Pretty maybe means even lesser coins than dinner. I know it's a dinner. A place where generally pruta is copper, and they don't make prutas out of silver. Bryce number 2. It says dov gold ain't pachas medina dov. The minimum is a dinner of gold. Before we look about silver, not about gold. Minimum dinner of gold. If it says dov dinner dov, it says in plural gold dinner or dinner in gold. Ain't pachas dinner dov. You got to give 2 dinner of gold. What about it says dov gold bedinner gold, but in dinarin? We're going to say that in dinarin means silver. How much gold do you have to give? You didn't give a number of the dinarin. The value of 2 silver dinarin. Give gold the value of 2 silver ones. The Gemara will explain in a minute why in the first brisa we decided bid dinarin means gold dinarin, and in this brisa we decided bid dinarin means silver. You said dove ain't pach medina dove. The dove gold means a minimum of a gold coin. Maybe it's a chunk of silver. Rabbi Lazar says the cost of matbeya, it's written coin. The aim of prita maybe means a small denomination. Prita, the davila of the inshe. A coin of prutas, nobody makes it out of gold. If we didn't make it before out of silver, surely make prutas generally are copper. Then it says bedinarin, you said gold, but the value of dinarin, you said it means the value of 2 silver coins, and that's how much gold I'm going to give you. The value of 2 dinar of silver, and I'm going to give you that amount of gold. The aima, why do we say the haba pricha? How do you know it means silver at all? Maybe it means there's 2 kinds of gold. There's gold coins and there's gold pieces, and gold pieces are worth a lot less. The aima maybe means the haba pricha, that I will give the gold pieces, but say I will give you the gold equivalent of 2 pieces of dinar of broken gold. Whenever we don't know if it means gold or silver, which is whatever is worth less, that's what you pay. That's what you pay. Skip the parentheses. So how do we explain the two brises? How come the first brise we decided that dinarin means gold, and the second brise we decided that dinarin means silver? It's the same word. Omar Rabashi, Reisha the cause of dinarei. He wrote dinarei. Dinarei is more chashav, more significant, something which is a bit more unique. So we'll say it's gold. But the say for the cost of dinarin is like the street vernacular, which is like the common stuff. Common stuff, that's silver.